December 18th, 2022. The day football supposedly reached its endgame. Lionel Messi, surrounded by a band of brothers who swore to die on the pitch for him, finally conquered the world. It was a fairy tale ending, the perfect script. And right now, as we head directly into the 2026 FIFA World Cup, the mainstream media is feeding you a dangerous narrative. They are telling you that Argentina is still the absolute, undisputed favorite to retain their crown. They look at the star on the badge. They look at the trophies. But they are completely blind to reality. Because beneath the romanticized hype, beneath the golden patches and the legacy media propaganda, a brutal, undeniable truth is staring us right in the face. Heading into 2026 is fundamentally broken. The tactical ecosystem that made them gods in Qatar has collapsed. The biological clock has run out. And the tactical innovations of the rest of the world have completely passed them by. In this video, we aren't here to give you comfortable lies. We are here to give you the cold, hard, data-driven facts. From the terrifying reality of the post-Messi vacuum to a catastrophic structural flaw in their midfield that top European teams have already figured out how to exploit. Here are the 5 brutal reasons why Argentina will not win FIFA 2026. And trust me, the final reason will completely reshape how you view international football. Let's start with the elephant in the room. The factor that nobody in Buenos Aires wants to speak out loud. The post-Messi vacuum. For nearly 2 decades, Argentina's entire footballing identity has been centralized around a single, astronomical gravity well: Lionel Messi. Every pass, every transitional phase, every tactical defensive trigger under Lionel Scaloni was designed to maximize Messi's efficiency while covering for his lack of defensive work rate. In 2022, this was their ultimate weapon. The DePaul bodyguard system worked flawlessly because Messi was still capable of producing bursts of world-class, match-winning acceleration. But fast forward to today. The physical toll of playing in a hyper-expanded, grueling 48-team World Cup across 3 massive countries is unprecedented. Even if Messi takes the pitch, he is no longer the player who can systematically tear apart low blocks for 90 minutes straight at the highest intensity. And here lies the psychological trap. Argentina hasn't just relied on Messi's feet. They have relied on his mythos. For years, whenever La Albiceleste found themselves in a crisis, the tactical instruction was simple: give the ball to Leo and pray. What happens when Leo is locked down by a physical, suffocating modern defense? Or worse, what happens when he isn't on the pitch to bail them out? The younger generation, Julian Alvarez, Lautaro Martinez, Enzo Fernandez, are elite players at the club level. But they have spent their entire international careers acting as supporting characters in a theatrical masterpiece. They have never had to carry the crushing, radioactive pressure of being the main protagonists of a World Cup campaign. When things go wrong in 2026, and in a World Cup, things always go wrong, the lack of an alpha creator who can warp reality the way Messi does will cause a massive, systemic panic. Argentina won't just miss Messi's goals. They will be haunted by his ghost. To understand why a team will fail tomorrow, you must look at what it cost them to win yesterday. Argentina's World Cup triumph in Qatar was built on an astronomical, almost unsustainable physical sacrifice. Their midfield engine room, specifically Rodrigo de Paul, Marcos Acuña, Nahuel Molina, and Nicolás Otamendi, played at an absolute redline intensity. They won that tournament by outrunning, outfighting, and physically harassing every midfield they encountered. The core engine that drove Scaloni's press is experiencing massive biological burnout. Look at the data. Nicolas Otamendi, the defensive rock, is fundamentally too slow to cope with elite, modern transitional wingers. Rodrigo de Paul, whose infinite stamina pool covered up Argentina's tactical asymmetries, has seen his interception rates and successful pressures drop significantly. You cannot win a World Cup in North America with an aging, physically declining core. The 2026 tournament features an expanded format with an extra knockout round. The travel distances between venues like New York, Los Angeles, and Mexico City are massive. The climate shifts from humid coastal cities to high-altitude stadiums will demand peak physiological conditioning. While rival nations like France, Germany, and Spain are injecting hyper-athletic 20 to 24-year-old physical monsters into their starting lineups, Argentina is stubbornly holding on to the romanticized loyalty of their 2022 heroes. Loyalty wins hearts. It does not win back-to-back World Cups. When Argentina is forced into a high-intensity transition game against a physically superior opponent in the quarterfinals, their aging engine room will quite literally run out of gas. Now, let's get deeply tactical. Every great team has a structural blueprint, and every blueprint has a structural flaw. Argentina's current tactical setup has a massive, gaping vulnerability that elite managers across Europe have spent the last few years quietly studying and figuring out how to completely exploit. We call it the asymmetric space deficit. Under Scaloni, Argentina thrives when they can suffocate the center of the pitch. They play narrow, compact football, forcing opponents into wide areas where Rodrigo de Paul or the fullbacks can trap them. But look at how elite club football has evolved. The modern game is defined by ultra-wide, elite isolation wingers and vertical tiki-taka. Teams don't build up slowly through the midfield anymore. They bypass it entirely with lethal vertical switches. Because Argentina's midfield lacks absolute raw tracking pace, they are hyper-dependent on a high defensive line to keep the team compact. When the opposition employs world-class ball strikers or wingers who can stretch the pitch horizontally, Argentina's midfield trio gets dragged out of position. Enzo Fernandez is a phenomenal deep-lying playmaker, an elite orchestrator. Alexis McAllister is a brilliant space interpreter. But neither of them is a natural, destructive, modern defensive midfielder like a prime Casemiro or a Rodri. They want the ball at their feet. They do not want to spend 90 minutes sprinting backward to cover 40 yards of empty space. When Argentina faces a team with elite horizontal stretching capabilities, their midfield splits wide open. This leaves an aging center-back pairing completely exposed in isolation. It's a fatal structural flaw that was hidden in 2022 by sheer adrenaline and emotion. But in 2026, against hyper-drilled modern systems, it will be thoroughly dissected on the global stage. In international football, the hardest thing to do is not winning a trophy. It is surviving the day after you win it. The moment you lift the World Cup, a giant metaphorical target is painted directly onto your back. Every single tactical analyst, video coordinator, and head coach in world football spends the next 4 years decoding your system. And that brings us to reason number 4: absolute predictability. In 2022, Scaloni was a tactical chameleon. He shocked France by deploying Angel Di Maria on the left flank, a masterstroke that completely destabilized Didier Deschamps' defensive blueprint. He used a back three against the Netherlands to match their wingbacks. He was brave, unpredictable, and highly reactive. But success breeds comfort, and comfort breeds stagnation. Over the last couple of years, Argentina's tactical evolution has completely flatlined. They play the exact same patterns, rely on the exact same slow, rhythmic, possession-based build-up, and use the exact same personnel formulas. The rest of the world has caught up. Teams no longer fear Argentina's press. They invite it, absorb it in a low block, and wait for the inevitable physical drop-off in the second half. Scaloni has failed to integrate a radical Plan B. There is no dynamic, direct aerial threat to change games late on. There is no structural alternative if their possession game is disrupted by high-pressing teams. When you become predictable at a World Cup, you are already dead. The elite European powerhouses aren't going to be surprised by Argentina anymore. They know exactly how Scaloni's men build up. They know exactly where the spaces are, and they have spent 4 long years preparing the perfect tactical antidote. And finally, we arrive at the most terrifying reason of them all. A factor that has nothing to do with tactics, biology, or psychology, but everything to do with pure, cold mathematics and chaotic logistics. Welcome to the absolute meat grinder of the 2026 expanded format. In Qatar, the tournament was hyper-localized. Teams stayed in the same hotels, trained on the same pitches, and experienced zero travel fatigue. It was a sterile, perfectly controlled environment that favored technical, older teams who needed maximum recovery time between games. 2026 is the exact polar opposite. It is a logistical nightmare. Argentina could find themselves playing a group stage game in the scorching heat of Monterrey, Mexico, flying thousands of miles to a freezing indoor stadium in Vancouver, Canada, for the round of 32, and then rushing to Miami for the quarterfinals. The toll this takes on a player's circadian rhythm, muscle recovery, and mental endurance is unprecedented. But the real mathematical cruelty is the addition of the round of 32. In previous World Cups, a powerhouse like Argentina could practically cruise through a relatively straightforward group stage, play one comfortable round of 16 match against a lower-seeded underdog, and effectively find themselves in the final 8 with plenty of fuel left in the tank. Not anymore. The 2026 World Cup introduces an extra single-elimination knockout match. That means an extra 90 or 120 minutes of pure, high-stakes, nerve-wracking football where a single random deflected shot, a controversial VAR decision, or a momentary lapse in concentration from an aging defender means you are going home. The sheer mathematical probability of keeping a clean sheet and winning 5 consecutive knockout matches in a hyper-chaotic environment is incredibly low. The expanded format actively favors deep, hyper-athletic squads that can rotate 22 world-class players without a drop in quality. Argentina simply does not possess that depth. They have an elite starting 11, a few trusted veteran substitutes, and a massive drop-off in world-class quality after that. The mathematical chaos of North America will chew them up and spit them out. The romantic storytellers of football want you to believe in fairy tales. They want you to believe that emotional narrative weight, past glory, and the aura of the greatest player to ever live can defy physics, tactics, and time. But football at this level is a cold, calculated science. When you factor in the inevitable post-Messi psychological void, the biological-physical burnout of their aging engine room, the glaring structural vulnerabilities in their midfield space, their total tactical predictability, and the absolute logistical meat grinder of the new 48-team format, the conclusion is written on the wall. Argentina's era of absolute global dominance is over. The crown is slipping, and in 2026, A new king will inevitably rise. But look, I want to hear from you. Am I being way too harsh on La Albiceleste? Or do you see the exact same warning signs that I do? Who do you think actually has the squad depth and physical power to conquer North America in 2026? Drop your tactical hot takes in the comments below. If you love this deep dive, make sure to smash that like button, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications. This is Pitch High, where we take your football view to the absolute next level. See you in the next one.